Good evening to everyone. This is Karen Hunt at Break Free Media. This is a special Break Free Mondays for my paid subscribers. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm just going to kind of do something off the cuff, a little more just, speaking about what's on my heart today, especially with everything that's been going on lately. Just a short piece for all of you. This whole thing with Charlie Kirk and the huge backlash, I mean, the outpouring of hatred that we're seeing online has been really disturbing. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit because, I think to myself, what is the point of what I'm doing? What is my message? What am I trying to achieve with, all of these hours upon hours that I spent writing these pieces and then now, doing these videos and all of that? What, you know, if there is not something, if we're not in some kind of a battle for something that is important, then all of this is just a huge waste of time and energy. And we might as well all just, go out and get drunk and, live for the moment because tomorrow we die, right? So I've been thinking a lot about that and to sort of, renew my pledge of what I'm trying to do with this writing. It's sort of like the United States is going through some kind of a horrible divorce, right? We have two sides that are just in bitter enmity against one another. It's not yet like a civil war, it's like a divorce. And it's a kind of divorce where you feel like each side feels like they have to vilify the other side. They have to make the other side into such a horrific, horrible, horrible monster so that it justifies what they're doing. And of course, sometimes the other side is actually a horrible monster, right? But the United States is not a horrible monster. We are not, at least not at that point yet. So, so we are all, I have had so many friends on the left, conservatives, liberals. I think we all have all through our lives. And it's like more and more, it's just not possible anymore. And I've come to the point where I think, wow, to be a centrist, to be in the middle is the extremism now, right? You have to choose one side or the other. And then you have to be in a bitter battle against those who who you disagree with. And that is not what's happening. So that is not what should happen. So I wanted to think a little bit about. I published my one of my dad's last talks, and I do encourage people to listen to it. It's such a it's a heartfelt piece. He's very elderly. It's not one of his really vivacious, charismatic ones from when he was younger, but it's really a man who is at the point where he is facing eternity. And that might make me a little emotional when I think about that. But he's really trying to get across this message of love that's basically essentially the heart of Jesus. And I was thinking about that in terms of Charlie Kirk because my father had the opportunity to live a long life, and he became more temperate as he got older. He became a little more nuanced than when when you're young, you're fiery and you might say things sometimes that you might regret later on. We all do this, we've all done it. And so Charlie Kirk, he was only 31 years old when he died. And people, and so people just grabbed onto every little thing that he said that they could, to demonize him, right, from the other side, to turn him into some kind of a monster, to make him into what their image of him, so that they can feel better about the position that they hold on to, that people are holding now so tightly to themselves. And so I wanted to talk because if you look at the debates that he did on college campuses, really honestly, that he was doing what we all should be doing now. We should all be talking to one another in the real world. I've said this many, many times. This was a little bit actually revolutionary. Um, and I want to talk a little bit about, when I was a kid in the 1970s. This is what everybody was doing. Everybody was out. The Hare Krishnas were out. The Crips and all the revolutionary people were out. Everybody was talking to one another. The Jesus people were out, which is, that was like my crowd, right? And but that's all been silenced. We've all been put inside these algorithmic prisons now, and nobody and we're not really supposed to go out into the real world and have these conversations. The conversations that Charlie Kirk was having were important conversations. Yes, he had his point of view, but I've looked at hundreds of these videos now just to of him having these conversations. I don't see in any of them where he's disrespectful or where he's unkind. He listens carefully to people. I mean, of course, they probably picked and choose which videos to put up, the most interesting or the most maybe controversial or confrontational ones perhaps. But he's always respectful, and certainly, I mean, people had to come outside of the classroom in order to do this, because you could not have these types of conversations. You can't ask those types of questions anymore a lot of times in universities now. So it gave young people an opportunity to ask those questions that maybe they weren't able to ask inside their classrooms with their professors. The left could do the same thing. Why not? And, I mean, everyone should be doing this. That would be a great thing. Why doesn't some great, big leftist leader get up and respectfully have conversations and invite conservatives to do the same thing? So I couldn't find any reason why anyone could find fault with that. However, there are other videos of him which now are circulating around. I mean, things that he said, for example, let me look here and see. When Zelensky came to the United States and met with that first meeting with Trump, and he was humiliated in his office, I wrote, I did not think that was right. Charlie Kirk wrote, "We don't support you." He wrote this to Zelensky. "Show some respect next time. You are an ungrateful, petulant child who is responsible for 1 million dead." I do not agree with him. I mean, this young man speaking to the leader of this nation that is fighting for its life. I might not agree with everything that Zelensky is, but show some respect. Be respectful to this leader of this nation that is going through so much. He called George Floyd a scumbag. I do not believe that Jesus would ever have called George Floyd a scumbag. George Floyd was a sad, tragic figure, an addict who died in a terrible way. He was, it was horrific what the left did to him by making him into some kind of a martyr or a saint. If I were black, I would be offended that this is the sort of person that you expect me as a black person to look up to. However, I know that as a Christian, Jesus would not have called George Floyd a scumbag, all right? He also called for public executions, and there's a video. I mean, the arrogance of him as he's speaking about this is terrible. He called for public executions, bring back the guillotine, make children as young as 12 years old watch public executions, teach them a lesson. I mean, this is not in any way how a Christian would speak. I mean, this is bringing this sounds like Islam, right? Public executions in Chop Chop Square. They literally call it that. Yeah, let's drag people out and execute them. Let's chop off their heads in the public square. No, that is not what we do as Christians. I was concerned that he platformed the worst of the worst on the right at his last Turning Point USA conference. And, Tucker Carlson was his keynote speaker. And as Tucker Carlson was speaking, people were walking out, offended with obviously his position on Israel now. Uh, Instead of turning to somebody like Mossab Hassan Youssef, someone like that, to speak on behalf of what's happening in Gaza, who did he choose? Who did he turn to and ask a question of? Dave Smith. I was appalled by that. And, I could go on. I wrote an essay about it already. But the point is, I do believe that he was being pressured to turn away from his support for Israel. It's like, if you want to go to the next level, and trust me, I mean, I know that people on the right, they see what's happening. It's very easy to see all the evil, all the bad that's happening on the left. We all remember how we were vilified and hated. And I mean, I was called horrible, horrible names by people on the left. I mean, a putrid, you know, I mean, I won't even go there with all of the horrible things that I was called. So, but we also are responsible too. And so we're not seeing, a lot of people are not seeing how far to the right this is going and how dangerous this split is, and how at a certain point it will be demanded of us to choose one side or the other. And if we do not, and also if we do not turn against Israel, we will be persecuted as anyone would, as the Bible actually prophesies will happen. That's what I believe. So on the other hand, I personally do not believe, and this is what the heart of what I want to get at. I have my faith, Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. I do not push that on other people. The way that I grew up as in the evangelical Christian world, during that time when everybody was going out into the street and witnessing for whatever, I would go out into the streets and with the four spiritual laws, anyway, yeah, we had this little booklet and we would go and share the spiritual laws, but just walk up to people at the mall and say, Jesus loves you and can I share this with you? And you would want people to come to Jesus right there in that moment. And I think I was probably around 14 years old, and I remember one lady, she just ignored me and she started walking away, and in my ignorant arrogance I said, I called after her, well, you're going to hell, and that's where you're going to end up, something like that. And she turned on me and she said, who do you think you are? What right do you don't know anything about me. Who are you to judge? And what you've just done has turned me further away from ever wanting to be a Christian than I would have before. And this was a very, very hard moment for me, because I have never forgotten it, and it really started to change my perspective. On another instance, I love my dad a lot, but in our neighborhood where we lived, actually the high school that I went to is like 75% Jewish, Taft High School. No longer like that today, but we lived in a very nice neighborhood when, before my dad became a Christian author, and we lost everything, but then he became successful again as a writer. But, he was a successful businessman. We lived in a beautiful big house in this lovely neighborhood. And he had this idea to invite all the Jewish neighbors over. There was a film about Israel, and I don't remember the name of it, but the singer Cliff Richard, Israel is my land, or something like that. And he had a song about Israel. Cliff Richard was a huge, big singer back in the day. I actually got to know him when I got married and lived in England, and I actually illustrated one of his album covers, but I didn't know that when I was, 14 years of age. Anyway, so my dad, he thought this was a wonderful, wonderful film, and he would about Israel and about, bringing Jews to the Lord to become Christians. And he invited all the Jewish neighbors and told them that this was a film about Israel, and they all came. He was not, he wasn't honest about it. He didn't say, you're going to get you into my living room and then I'm going to witness to you while you're sitting there. He didn't say that. He just said it was a film about Israel. And everybody came and it was nice and the lights turned down and the film started. And I could just feel the energy in the room shift and become very uncomfortable. And there were people who got up and they walked out. And that was another moment. I think it was probably a learning experience for my father too, that not everybody's going to agree with you. The way to, I can't convince anybody of anything. I know what I believe. I know who I am. And everything else, all the rest is up to you. Whatever you believe, whatever you are, I leave all of that in God's hands. And actually, one of the couples was a lovely couple that I babysat their children. That was my job, babysitting their children. And I don't remember if they walked out or not, but I was so afraid that they were going to fire me for that. But they didn't. They were very gracious, and they kept me on. So I am so concerned now that we are being just put into these places where we are so dogmatic and so it's just frightening. And I don't want people to, I just want to caution people on this. And I think a lot of people aren't going to notice that it's happening. They're only going to see the other side. They're only going to become more and more offended by the other side. But if you ground yourself in faith, in love, in these are the things that we must the life that Jesus lived, the life that he lived. It is not the life of the rich and the famous and the wealthy and the and the popular influencer. I mean, Jesus, if Jesus came to earth today, he would be treated the same. He would be, he would not be, I don't think he would be, he would not be, the richest man in the world, right? Pushing AI on us, basically. It is now being said, of Charlie Kirk, because he, it's now being said that this is from the Gray Zone News. Charlie Kirk refused, this is what they're saying on the right, which is getting further and further right, okay? Further and further right. Watch over the next 3 years as it happens. And as we all start to lose our freedoms, pushback, revenge on the left because of all the horrible things that they did. I don't believe that this is the way to solve any problems. But Charlie Kirk refused Netanyahu funding offer, was frightened by pro-Israel forces before death. A longtime friend of Kirk tells the Gray Zone how the late influencer's turning point on Israel provoked a private backlash that left him angry and afraid. And then Stu Peters, another one of these horrific far-right people, says pretty obvious that Israel ordered the hit after Charlie started noticing. And now they've handed his organization over to Shapiro, an actual Mossad operative. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I have a feeling that Turning Point USA could probably go even further right. I think that's the direction that it was probably going, towards this Christian nationalism, where there's no longer this separation between church and state, but we all have to basically. It's like the the flip side of Islam. It's this force that's coming together as the flip side of Islam, but they're really actually both the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same evil. All right, evil will cloak itself however it deems it can deceive us the best. Right? That's how it happens. So I refuse to be influenced by these influencers to I really do wish that Charlie Kirk had not said imagine if there had been no inflammatory statements that anybody could bring up to vilify him. Well, nobody's perfect, right? But this is the thing. So we need to be very, very conscious, very, very careful, and very, very. I never curse, I never mock other people. Um, you know, it's not my place to do that. All I can do is just pour my heart out with what I believe. That's the best that I can do. And hopefully, there will be some people who will listen. Never going to be on that turning point stage. That's never going to happen. But hopefully, all these little voices, smaller voices like mine, and there's a lot of others, that creates a great spiritual force, I do believe, for good in this world. So that's what I wanted to say today. Just sort of my thoughts to all of you. God bless you all this evening. And in the coming week, yeah, I'm back working on my book. I have, oh my goodness, I'm looking now. I see so many. That's another thing that's happened. I did make some, like on my Facebook page. I don't really interact much on Facebook, but I just put my essays when they're there. And what's interesting is everybody had been very quiet all this time since COVID. That was the last time people were in these battles, but people have come out of the woodwork now. And I'm getting a lot of comments from people that were previously silent and since this Charlie Kirk thing. And the reason again is because he went out into the real world and he was actually, this is what's important about Charlie Kirk, and his voice was silenced. His voice was silenced. And this is what is the tragedy. And we need to keep these conversations going, basically. That's what we need to do. So yeah, so I'm the rest of this week. I pray to God that nothing horrible happens, and I'll just keep working on my book. Maybe make a few little comments here and there, what have you. All right, thanks a lot. I will see you all later. God bless you all.